Okay, y'all. Whew. Whew. Last night and this morning, I saw a movie called Society. I'd never heard of this movie before, but I was looking up films about cults, and this came up. As it turns out, it's a movie from 1989, and it's it's I guess seen as a horror movie or marketed as a horror movie, which I guess it is. It's B grade schlocky horror, 80s horror. There are certain qualities to 80s schlock that are unique to the 80s. A certain type of bad acting, a certain type of bad writing that seems unique to the 80s, and this film has that in spades. In some ways, it's a movie that just wants you to see it as pure camp. But it seems like they go above and beyond when it comes to the bad writing, bad dialogue, for example. Like, this is like The Room level bad dialogue. Like, there's one exchange where one character says to another, "You won't get away. You'll never get away with this," and the other character punches that character in the face and says, "I wouldn't count on it. You'll never get away with this. I wouldn't count on it." Like, what? So are you agreeing that you won't get away with it? Like, he says you'll never get away with this, and he says I wouldn't count on it. Like, couldn't you have just made him say, "Oh yes, I will," or "That's what you think," or something that makes sense as a rebuttal? But you'll never get away with this. Psh, I wouldn't count on it. What? I mean, you know what he's trying to say, but just come on, dialogue writer, come on. There's another moment in the movie where the hero gets bullied and gets thrown into a swimming pool, and he's humiliated, and he gets out. He's got all of his clothes on, but he's all wet from the pool, and this sexy girl who likes him, sexy seductive girl who likes him, sidles up and says, "Wet dream." Well, no, I just was thrown into a swimming pool. You were there, you saw it, right? I mean, what in the world? If she came across him, and he was all wet, and she didn't know why he was wet, then maybe that joke would work. But in that circumstance, it's just like, ah. Later, this same girl says to the guy, "How would you like your tea? With cream, sugar, or would you like me to pee in it?" Like, okay. Are we supposed to think, "Ooh, she's so kinky"? I mean, that's just gross. Like, why would you say that? Those are just the more egregious examples of just the terrible dialogue that's in this movie. And if this were just a bad movie, that would be one thing. But it's kind of like it's a kind of a companion piece to They Live in a lot of ways. In that its ultimate message, or what it's saying, what it's broadcasting, the story that it's telling, is similar to They Live. It's the notion that the people who are rich, powerful, and influential, who control everything, are not truly human. In this case, they're monsters. They're not they're not really aliens like in They Live, but they're these hideous monsters, and they're completely depraved, oversexed, and they get into these types of orgies that involve incest, and they can transform themselves into these creatures that like just suck the energy out of other creatures. And apparently the special effects guy, the person who came up with the really disgusting models, and so forth, special effects models, and what have you, for this movie, is the one who did the same one who did Reanimator, which I've never seen, but I know it's another gross out movie from the 80s. And so you have these kinds of special effects that are absolutely disgusting and revolting, and also really compelling in a way. When you watch this orgy scene, you see these monsters who represent the the elite among us. Just absolutely sadistically cackling as they victimize their prey. It's schlocky, yes, but it's also powerful on the at the same time, in a way that recalls They Live. Now, I would say They Live, while it's also a B movie, is better acted and better written. The dialogue's not great in They Live. I'll be the first to say that, and I'm a fan of They Live. But I've come to chew bubblegum and kick ass. It's a pretty cheesy line, and there's a lot of other lines kind of like that. But it's better, higher quality than the acting and dialogue in this movie, Society. But at the same time, there's a commonality with those two movies. They Live came out in 1988. Society came out in '89. Again, the 80s quality of these movies is part of, I guess, the campy appeal. But everything that's campy about They Live, and I would say it was obviously a low budget. It's schlock. It's a B movie, and it wears that on its sleeves. And John Carpenter was he was a director who had an auteur sort of quality about him, but at the same time he reveled in being a B movie, low budget kind of director at the same time. So it's a combination of those two elements that you also find in Society. So Society is even worse as a B movie. It's all the things that every criticism, every legitimate criticism you could have about a movie like They Live, and every reason you could have for not taking it seriously, is worse about a movie like Society. But at the same time, as with They Live, it has this really, I don't know what the right word is. I almost want to say subversive, but that's not really the right word. Just ballsy, maybe, is the word to use. In its portrayal of the the people in charge as being monstrous, as being inhuman. It's it really goes there hard. And for everything that's stupid about this movie, the this aspect of it, I think, to me, makes it worth watching. Now, that's something everybody has to decide on their own. I think if you're a squeamish person, you don't want to watch this movie. If you're not, into horror, or what do they call body horror, then you wouldn't like this movie. And if you have a very low tolerance for bad acting and bad dialogue, then you wouldn't like this movie. But that said, I think there's things to admire about this movie, Society, and that's what's left me so addled after having watched it, because on the one hand it's really bad, and it's like really really bad, but something sustains it at the same time, and what sustains it is the critique, if you want to call it that, the satire, or is it satire? Would you call it satire? Maybe it's just like laying bare something that a lot of us suspect to be true about the way things are. And again, it's similar to They Live in that respect. Roddy Piper famously tweeted back in 2013 that They Live was a documentary. And I think in some ways you could say the same thing about Society. Now, the really absolutely appalling, disgusting, revolting part of the movie is the final 20 minutes or so. That's where we see this orgy of both sex and also sex involving every kind of deviation you can imagine, and also the feasting upon the people who are actually human, the sort of people that they look down on, the goyim, if you will, the cattle, the human cattle, the sort of the ones that they want to they want the depopulationists want to keep around a certain number of people, 500 million, like it said on the Georgia Guidestones, or something around that number, because you have to have slaves, right, to do your will. People who, when you see yourself a certain way, as fit to rule, and being the only true instance of humanity, or the true instance of a higher being, and everyone else around you is just beasts of burden to be used for your benefit or your pleasure, your sick, games, what have you. It's also funny that the film is titled Society, because, of course, much more recently, there's been a lot of, kind of a meta joke around society. We live in a society, etc. The theme song, the theme song for this movie, which they play during the closing credits. I think also near the beginning, although not during the opening credits. Um, you know, just it's sort of like a graduation song. It's sort of like an alma mater song, except it's glorifying the the ruling class, the monstrous, inhuman, sadistic ruling class, in this very sappy, sentimental, da da na 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 na, pomp and circumstances kind of way, is very good, very clever. But the thing is, they have like they add a level of grotesquerie to it by have it be sung by in some weird high pitched voice, where it just grates on the ears to have to listen to. They couldn't just have it be sung normally, just have it be sung by a normal chorus, or whatever, and therefore let the words really, the inhumanity that of the message of the words really come across, like it's something that's sung very sweetly, like a "Tomorrow Belongs to Me" kind of moment from Cabaret. but instead it all is just extremely grotesque and inhuman, and it's weird. There is a kind of there is an aesthetic behind it all, and you would think that they would just spend a little bit more time on things like acting, things like dialogue. Like they could have gotten better performances out of these people. They could have given these people better lines to use or to have come out of their mouths during crucial scenes or whatever. So there's a weird combination of very something that's very deliberate, a very deliberate aesthetic, and also the just this schlock, just this awful quality of movie making that is weird. The combination of those two things is weird, and just adds to the overall weirdness of this movie. So there you have it. That's my sort of review of the film Society, and we live in a society, so why not see the movie, right? I will leave the link below to where you can watch it if you choose to. Thanks for watching. Talk to y'all soon.